This is the story of how I meticulously planned my escape from a deceitful marriage, making my unfaithful wife believe I was straying, only to vanish on Christmas Day, leaving behind a blizzard of undeniable truth. Get ready for an incredible tale, an extraordinary saga from my life, as I recount how I deceived my soon-to-be ex-spouse into thinking I was also unfaithful, then executed a complete, silent withdrawal, delivering her divorce papers on Christmas. Grab a seat and a treat, because this narrative stretches from late 2019 right up to recent days. All identities, as is customary, have been changed here. All right, let's set the scene. My soon-to-be ex-wife was my first love, my high school sweetheart. Our journey began in 1992. We were both 17. Now, at 45, our lives have been intertwined ever since. She was the sole romantic partner I had ever known. We tied the knot 5 years later at 22, shortly after graduating from university. A year later, our first son arrived, followed by another. They are now 22 and 17. I devoted 23 years to her, constructing a home, toiling relentlessly to provide the existence she desired. Of course, every relationship faces difficulties, and ours was no different. Even through our most challenging periods, we managed to persevere and emerge stronger, which made the revelation of her betrayal even more shocking. Flashback to March 2020, when I first sensed that something was amiss. For 2 months prior, we had been experiencing a strained period. I was recovering from reconstructive knee surgery, having torn my ACL in the autumn of 2019, but my mobility was still limited. At that time, I only had about 55% range of motion in my knee. This significantly impacted many aspects of our household. I was on workers' compensation due to a job injury and unable to perform my usual domestic duties, so a lot of things accumulated. My sons assisted where they could, but tasks only I was capable of doing had to be deferred or undertaken by my wife, which she clearly resented. Intimacy between us also came to a halt. It had already slowed before my injury, but in my condition, it completely ceased. During these months, my wife, whom we'll call Sue, was spending more time with colleagues after work. Between November 2019 and March 2020, this became a regular occurrence for her. Naturally, I suspected nothing. In the 23 years I had been with her, I never had cause for concern or distrust. She had her social circle, I had mine, and we shared mutual friends. I frequently socialized with my friends without issue. Everything seemed above board. It was around January of that year that I noticed a peculiar change. Sue began to become noticeably distant from me. Although we were in a difficult phase, she had never before withheld affection. The usual hugs and kisses she would give me stopped. Her phone had been constantly in her hand long before my suspicions grew, but she had always shared and shown me things she found online. DIY ideas, recipes from Pinterest, humorous images, all sorts of content. Now, however, she was secretive about her phone. Even her interactions with me became more abrupt, as if I were a bother. So we arrived in March. The global pandemic had begun, and New York City was under lockdown. Our chosen professions were deemed essential, so neither of us had to work from home. I had just recently been cleared to return to my job after 5 months of recovery, and I was eager to get back to it. 5 months of rehabilitating my knee and being unable to engage in physical activities had driven me crazy. For context, I enjoy physical pursuits. I am an enthusiastic martial artist and typically spent 4 days a week at the gym, in addition to all the home projects I undertook. Within a week or two of the lockdown, my soon-to-be ex-wife informed me she would need to start working extended hours. Again, I thought nothing of this, given her profession. Of course, I assumed it would be every other day, but no, it was daily, and not just an hour or two. She would return home 3 or more hours later and go directly to shower, spend a brief moment with me, a little time with our 17-year-old, our 22-year-old lived with his girlfriend across town, and then retire to bed. As I regained my strength and knee stability, we started becoming intimate again. But as you might expect, she was not mentally or emotionally present, which I quickly observed. By April, the situation became clearer to me. All the indications pointed to her having an affair. That's when I resolved to find answers. I searched the internet for signs of infidelity in a partner, and indeed, she was exhibiting almost all of the behaviors listed. My search then advanced to how to find proof. I began with her social media, reviewing her Facebook posts from previous months. They mostly consisted of typical photos of us and our sons, pictures with her friends, and more than a few photos from her nights out with coworkers. In these pictures, there was a mix of her closest work friends and a couple of individuals I had never met from her workplace. But I noticed one recurring element in several of these images: a single man. In every picture he appeared in, he was uncomfortably close to her, his arm around her shoulder or his hand on her lower back. Far too close for someone I had never personally encountered. Needless to say, that left a bitter feeling. But that wasn't the worst of it, no. The worst was discovering that this individual was apparently a friend of hers on Facebook and followed her on Instagram. So I went to look up his Facebook account, and wouldn't you know it, I was blocked. Why was I blocked from viewing this man's Facebook profile when he was friends with her? Yes, at that point, I entered full detective mode. I wasn't even attempting to deny it. I knew she was cheating on me with this person. My mission was to determine for how long, and over the course of April and May, that's precisely what I did. I never had any idea of the extent of information you could obtain from phone texts and email records. Until then, we had a family cell phone plan, and I was able to access a significant amount of data. My soon-to-be ex-wife's data history was revealing. The two most frequently contacted numbers she had interacted with from October 2018 to April 2020 were my own and a number I had never seen before. Take a guess whose number it was. A quick check on Google confirmed it was the man from the photos who had blocked me on Facebook. We'll call him POS because that's what he represents. Again, the situation became even clearer at this point, but many of their messages and texts were incomplete, indicating she was deleting a lot of them. I knew she was betraying me with this man, but nothing in the data served as irrefutable proof. I needed more evidence. It was at this juncture that I informed my best friend Oz of what I had uncovered. He asked if I had confronted her with my findings, and I replied no, feeling it wasn't sufficient. That's when he told me about an application I could download to monitor her communications in real time. I won't mention its name, as I'm unsure of the rules here. I installed it, synced my data plan, and waited. Within days, I finally saw it. A text exchange between the two of them, discussing the enjoyment they had the previous night and making plans to meet again that weekend. Boom. A punch to the gut. To say I was utterly devastated would be an understatement. I suppose that moment qualifies as my D-Day. And for the next 2 days, I was simply broken. I actively distanced myself from her during those initial 48 hours after the discovery, which she noticed. She tried to comfort me and inquire about my distress, but I would dismiss her and leave her presence. I couldn't even look at her, this woman to whom I had given 23 years of my life, to whom I had dedicated everything I could and more as a husband, and she had stepped outside our marriage for a man only 5 years older than our eldest son. By the third day, my sadness vanished, replaced by pure rage. I contacted Oz to confirm my suspicions, and he asked if I had confronted her yet. My answer was no, and I told him I desired retribution. I didn't just want a divorce, I wanted to utterly dismantle her. I wanted to leave her life in disarray and completely ruin her. This would require time, and I devised a strategy. In my readings and research on infidelity, I had encountered a quote that resonated with me. The enemy of infidelity is unpredictability, or something similar. That would form the foundation of my strategy. I would make her life a constant torment while secretly preparing my exit. So we're now in early June and I still have the application installed. Almost every night I'm gathering as much information as I can, observing their back and forth messages. They're communicating as if in a full-fledged relationship. Explicit texts, affectionate romantic exchanges, nude photos, the whole package. At that point, I had stopped actually reading any of it. I was simply collecting data and cataloging it on my private server. Meanwhile, I began acting unusually. I started going out at unexpected hours. I began returning home even later than she did. In her presence, I was on my phone much more than usual, and when she asked what I was doing, I simply replied, "Just things," and put my phone away. I also changed all my login information so she couldn't access any of my accounts. Keep in mind, throughout our entire marriage, we had never hidden anything from each other. But right around what I assume was the beginning of her affair, She changed her password on Facebook and on her phone, claiming she had to due to security breaches in recent months. Yes, a very convenient excuse for concealing her infidelity from her husband. Anyway, I included Oz in my plan, as well as informing my older and only sister and two more of my closest friends about the situation. These are individuals I trust implicitly. I swore them to absolute secrecy. For context, Oz and I have been friends since childhood. Our other friends, Joey and Nina, we've known since high school. Remember Nina? She becomes important later. July arrives and my soon-to-be ex-wife is in full paranoid mode. She's texting and calling much more frequently now, asking if I'll be home when she arrives, when I'm coming home while she is not, inquiring about my activities. Everything. I can see the seed planted in her mind the previous month beginning to germinate, especially in her communications with POS. She's confiding in him her doubts and confusion, telling him I'm becoming cold and distant. The sheer audacity of this woman. In the midst of these interactions with POS, she suggested they should stop meeting at our house because she had no idea if I might just show up, confirming that, yes, she had brought this jerk into my home. Thanks, Sue. POS asked her in that specific conversation if she was worried about me potentially cheating on her, which actually angered her. I cannot even begin to describe the level of amusement and how many laughs I got from reading that exchange. My unfaithful wife arguing with her affair partner about whether she was upset that her husband might be cheating on her. Oh, the profound irony. Now, bear in mind, I wasn't engaging in any physical relationships when I left. I was usually at Oz's or Joey's place, enjoying some drinks, watching sports, and spending time with my male friends, or at my big sister's house, hanging out with her and my brother-in-law, who is like an older brother to me. My sister is 52 and her husband is 58. I had told him about my soon-to-be ex-wife's infidelity, but not about my plan. Couldn't risk it, as he's a bit of a talker. Fast forward now to October. That's when things really intensified. I had been maintaining my simulated affair for 3 months, and Sue was acutely aware that I was actively withdrawing from her. It had been since the day I initiated my plan until the day she confronted me, October 20th, 2020, that I had even touched her. No hugs, no kisses, no initiation of intimacy, nothing. Not that she needed it, she was still sleeping with POS just at his residence or in motels. So that afternoon she called me at work, which wasn't unusual before all this started, but certainly hadn't happened in a while, and asked me to come straight home after work, saying she had something important to tell me. I won't lie to you all, I had believed she was going to confess her infidelity, but of course she didn't. Instead, I arrived home to her asking me if I was unhappy with her. The sheer nerve. She cited the fact that I had been spending too much time away from home, that I no longer showed her affection, and that our intimate life had completely ceased. She told me she was worried I was pushing her away because I resented how she treated me during the months I was rehabilitating my knee. And then came the climax. She actually asked if I was cheating on her. Folks, I collapsed onto the floor laughing uncontrollably. And when I say uncontrollably, I mean truly hysterical. On the surface, to her, it must have seemed like I was dismissing the idea of being unfaithful. But it was, of course, actually me laughing at the pure absurdity of the situation unfolding before my eyes. I was crying, pounding the floor in complete hysterics for a good 2 minutes before I composed myself enough to respond. I sat up and looked her in the eyes for the first time in months, shaking my head, but I didn't give her an answer. I stood up, brushed myself off, kissed the top of her head, and proceeded to settle in for the night. Later that night, as I was in my office, I decided, given the gravity of what had transpired, I wanted to see what she was telling him. So I fired up the app, and sure enough, they were actually texting in real time. She told POS, I know he's cheating on me. I asked him tonight, and he literally laughed in my face. He fell on the floor and hammed for like 5 minutes. It wasn't 5 minutes, obviously. He doesn't even care how I feel anymore. I don't know how or why, but he's gone. I know I've lost him. This is karma. I know it. The grin I had on my face while reading that must have resembled a mischievous cat's. She was breaking. POS attempted to console her, suggesting that if I cared enough for her, she wouldn't have had to seek comfort from him to receive what I wasn't providing. But the tone of her replies indicated she was now harboring doubts. She had the audacity to step outside our marriage because I was unable to fulfill my role as a husband due to a legitimate injury, and continued the affair for nearly an entire year at that point. Yet the idea of her losing me to another woman was enough to make her waver. What a truly feeble individual. Now, during all of this, I was also executing the second part of my retribution plan, organizing all my financial affairs. In September, I had met with a family attorney to initiate the divorce proceedings. With the mountain of evidence I had accumulated by then, New York is an at-fault state for divorce, and the overwhelming proof I had gathered demonstrating the Sue's infidelity pretty much solidified that I could achieve a decisive victory in a divorce case. My lawyer instructed me to get all my finances in order in preparation for any division of assets that might result. I went one better than that, secretly transferring all my money from our joint account into my personal account. I also started looking for an apartment as part of phase 2. We're now in November and I haven't altered my behavior. In fact, I've intensified it. This is where my friend Nina comes into play. For context, Nina and Sue have never been particularly close. I met Nina in my freshman year of high school, 2 years before I met Sue. Even back then, Sue perceived Nina as a threat, as she is my closest female friend. There had always been an unspoken distrust from Sue regarding Nina. She never addressed it directly, but it was obvious to anyone paying attention. Conversely, Nina had never been a big fan of Sue. Early in my relationship with Sue, Nina pointed out how Sue was practically inserting herself into her small circle of friends, whereas I didn't do the same with Sue's group. That irritated Nina because she understood Sue's motivation. Among Sue's circle, even now, there are no male friends apart from POS, whereas Nina is the only girl in my close group. Nina had been stranded overseas due to the virus and finally returned to New York City on November 3rd. Oz, Joey, and I decided we would celebrate her return with an evening at Joey's house for dinner and drinks. There were only 5 of us: Oz, Joey, Joey's wife, who is also Nina's sister, Nina, and myself. Adhering to health guidelines, we took the pandemic very seriously. Nina, being the cunning orchestrator, came up with a mischievous idea to provoke Sue. She suggested we take some pictures similar to the photos I had discovered of Sue in POS months earlier and post them on my Facebook. And that's exactly what we did. It wasn't until the 5th that Sue became aware of it, as I assume a few friends noticed my updates and saw how uncomfortably close I was with Nina. This truly exasperated her because she still believed I was cheating. And I can almost guarantee she wanted to accuse Nina, but she knew that Nina had been stuck in Europe for most of the year. That still didn't stop her from attempting to reprimand me that night for being so, as she called it, touchy in the pictures. I saw this as a perfect chance to deliver the initial strike for my decisive blow. I said, "So what about the pictures with you and POS from last year? He was quite touchy in them, but did you see me get upset about it?" She looked stunned. It was the first time I had even mentioned the man's name throughout all of this. The mental gears in her head started turning rapidly as she tried to explain away those pictures. Until that moment, she hadn't even known I had seen them. That's how little I use Facebook. When I actually post something, it's like an event for people, which is why the pictures with Nina specifically gained so much attention among our circles. And explain them away she did. He's like that with everyone. He's just a very friendly guy. I can see how it looks, but there's nothing there. I'm sorry if those pictures hurt you. I'll delete them. I responded, "No, the pictures aren't what hurt me. The year you've been sleeping with that man while lying to me that you're working extra hours and hanging with friends is what truly hurt me. But vengeance, as a certain Starfleet officer famously observed, is a meal best served cold." That night, Sue was being excessively clingy and attentive to me, almost annoyingly so. She was attempting to initiate affection and intimacy, and I would rebuff her at every opportunity. All the while, I was still archiving everything she was saying to POS. By this point, I had long since become emotionally detached. Any desire I might have had to salvage my marriage was gone. I had checked out the day I enacted the first phase of my plan. So, she confided in him that I had become worse, that she didn't know what to do, and she felt like I absolutely despised her. I did. Then came the shocking news. She told him she couldn't see him anymore. The guilt was overwhelming and she felt suffocated by the weight of her actions. She couldn't risk losing me, she claimed. She said she loved POS deeply but was still in love with me and had to save her marriage before she lost me. No, my dear, you're about 8 months too late for that. POS lost his composure, uttering such lovely sentiments as, "He doesn't love you the way I love you. And you're making a mistake. You can't just discard me like this." That text chain would be the last they'd have until about 3 weeks ago. Throughout the remainder of November and December, she remained in a state of uncertainty. She was trying to gauge my emotional state and still couldn't tell if I was actually being unfaithful. Meanwhile, POS was constantly calling her phone daily. She wasn't responding to him. I would see her check her phone often, then quickly put it away. Meanwhile, phase 2 of the plan was now officially complete. The divorce papers were finalized. I had found a studio apartment in Co-op City. New Yorkers will know the area, and signed a 2-year lease on it. All my money was in my personal account. I was ready to deliver my knockout blow. So we're now at Thanksgiving. My oldest son and his girlfriend were hosting a small gathering of our immediate families. Them, my oldest son's girlfriend's parents, she's an only child, myself, Sue, and our youngest. We had a wonderful evening. My oldest son's girlfriend is studying to be a chef, and she did all the cooking herself. The girl can truly cook, let me tell you all. As I had to maintain appearances that nothing was wrong between Sue and me, I initiated affection with her several times that evening. Kisses on the cheek, small hugs, wrapping my arms around her shoulder from behind. The gestures didn't go unnoticed by her, and she reveled in them. Bear in mind, this was the first time I had touched this woman since I kissed the top of her head the night she confronted me in October. So, about 2 months. I won't lie, I felt disgusted doing it, but I had to. I couldn't risk the plan and my being distant from her in front of my boys. My oldest son's girlfriend and her parents would raise alarms. So my youngest decided he wanted to stay over with his older brother for the night. Sue and I headed home. On the drive home, she thanked me for being so kind to her and said, "I don't know what you're going through, darling, but I'm here for you." I had to suppress another burst of wild laughter and responded by saying, "I know, I just need time." So for the first time realistically since springtime, we had sex that night. I figured, what the heck? With what I'm about to do, I might as well get some action before I erase her from my existence. I won't go into detail, but it was not an act of lovemaking. When I was finished, she was a motionless figure lying there, trying to comprehend the impact of the emotional truck that had just hit her. No cuddling or anything afterward. I just got up, showered, and went to sleep in my office. To her confusion, though, I used a condom, the first time in 2 decades. She was definitely puzzled by it, but she didn't ask questions. I certainly wasn't going without protection, knowing she had been doing so with POS for months at that point. I woke up the next day and checked my useful spy app, and for the first time in weeks, she had responded to POS. The man went into a lengthy declaration. He professed his love for her, stated she was wasting her time trying to rekindle a flame in me that had died, that she had been trapped in a 23-year prison with me, and deserved to experience the love and affection of a man who would cherish her. Keep in mind, this man is 27 years old, 5 years older than our oldest son, and he's that infatuated with a 45-year-old married mother of 2. What a truly devoted, albeit naive, admirer. She chose to destroy our marriage and dismantle the home we had built for this man, a handsome individual with a sensitive side. She responded by saying pretty much the same thing she had said when they last talked, that she loved him and enjoyed their time together. But she couldn't lose me. I was still the love of her life, but she would always have a place for him in her heart, that they could still be friends if he chose. But the physical relationship between them was over. He pleaded with her to see him one last time that week. And yep, you guessed it, she said yes. One more for the road, right? Who am I to say anything? That's what I did to her the previous night. Of course, I added all that to the archive I had compiled. December 4th is when Phase 3, the final phase of Operation Silent Strike, began. The divorce papers were in hand, my new residence was prepared. Now I had to slowly start moving my belongings out of the house. But first I had to break the news to my boys. I called my oldest son to the house that Friday night, had them join me in my office, and laid everything out. Not the specifics, but that their mother had been unfaithful to me for over a year, and I would be filing for divorce soon. My 17-year-old was especially shaken by this because he himself had recently experienced his first encounter with infidelity. Yes, his first girlfriend had cheated on him just 4 months prior. Seeing his heart broken a second time at the thought that his own mother was capable of this hit him hard. My oldest son handled it much better and suggested his brother come live with him until this blew over, to which I agreed. We packed up some of his things, and he asked if I was going to be okay. I told him, "Yes, son, I'm going to be all right, and so are you. We're going to be all right, I promise." And then they departed. The hardest part was now over, and it was time to activate the final measures. Over the next few weeks, day by day, Oz would help me remove a little of my most sensitive items from the house. I gave him a list of all the essential things to retrieve while Sue and I were at work and left him the spare key. This was all the stuff Sue wouldn't notice was missing unless you specifically pointed it out. I had also obtained a new phone and phone number and informed everyone who needed to know, Azal, Joey, Nina, my boys, my big sister, and my mother, of my new contact information. Meanwhile, I maintained the deception with Sue, making her believe she was unaware. I trickled bits of affection to her, just enough to keep her off my trail while she was still in contact with POS. Not to the extent they had been previously, but there was still an emotional connection. The emotional haze was faint, but it lingered. All the while, I gathered everything, and I mean everything. Every piece of data I had archived since I started the plan. Call logs, texts, pictures, emails, everything. And I started making printouts. Folks, I must have spent over $1,500 on office supplies. Printer ink, paper, binders, the works. And I cataloged everything in chronological order from the beginning of the affair until the last bit 2 weeks ago, December 16th, in the binders, 14 of them. I then placed each one in a box and gift-wrapped each, addressing them to various people. My mother, her parents, my father passed 7 years ago, her 2 sisters, her brother, her HR department. Did I forget to mention POS works for the same company? And there's an explicit rule against interrelationships because of the nature of what she does? Several of her friends, POS, and POS's parents. I lugged all those packages to the post office and shipped them all out on December 16th, with an estimated delivery date between December 22nd and 24th. Perfect. So we're now at Christmas Eve. Sue comes home around the usual time. No idea if she'd seen POS. I'd stopped tracking her on the app on the 18th, figuring I'd gotten all the utility I needed from it. As per usual, she showers, hangs out with me a bit. I engage in intimacy with her on the living room couch. I know I'm a real jerk. And she turns in for the night. The final phase was upon me at long last. The decisive blow I'd been preparing since June was finally about to be delivered. In the middle of the night, I woke up and wrapped one of the 3 remaining binders with the divorce papers taped to the inside cover and set it on my side of the bed with a note that said Merry Christmas on it. Next to it, I left my old phone and my lawyer's business card. I packed up the remainder of my most needed items, enough to fill 2 backpacks, and I left my home that I had spent 23 years in for the last time. That, my friends, was 1 week ago. To Sue, I am completely off the grid, gone, a phantom. She's blocked on Facebook, but still hasn't blocked me for some reason, so I'm keeping tabs on the fallout. It's absolutely glorious. My packages have reached everyone I sent them out to, and Sue is being utterly condemned. Her youngest sister completely reprimanded her. Both of her parents have denounced her. My mom absolutely tore into her. Like, holy cow, I know my mom has a fierce side, but the things she called Sue were unbelievably harsh. She'd been frantically trying to find out if anyone knew where I was, but those who do aren't saying a word. All over her Facebook feed, she's desperately trying to reach me because I'm guessing she knows I'm likely watching. But I'm not saying a single word to her without my lawyer present. That will be the next time I share oxygen with her. She's got no way of twisting the narrative to portray me as the villain because I've exposed her to everyone who matters to her. And from what a mutual friend who works at the same company as her told me, she and POS are apparently being placed on administrative leave as of tomorrow. So yes, chances are she'll be entering 2021 unemployed. As for the final 2 binders, one has been turned over to my lawyer as my conclusive piece of evidence for my impending divorce, And the last one I put into my storage unit to be burned in Joey's fire pit when the divorce is final. Do I feel guilty about this? No, not in the slightest. For 23 years, I treated this woman honorably. I gave her the home she desired. I gave her the family she wanted. I gave her the life I felt we both deserved, and I loved her unconditionally. Never have I wavered. Never have I strayed. Never have I even considered breaking any vows. When an issue arose that I felt was affecting our marriage, I approached her, told her, and we resolved it as best we could. She opted to find solace in another man's bed rather than come to me and say she wasn't content with her intimate life at the time. She decided to step out with the young man who gave her a thrill. So no, I have no sympathy for what I did or for her. She can suffer for all I care. The most I stand to lose is my house, a car, and perhaps a few $100s a month in spousal support. But since the divorce is filed under the statute of adultery, and New York State is not entirely no fault, that might be waived given the insurmountable amount of evidence I've provided. As far as I'm concerned, she's irrelevant to me, and I'm never looking back. Quick clarification. New York State is not purely no fault. Under certain circumstances, a divorce can be filed on grounds of fault, which my lawyer has informed me my case falls under. I'll be meeting the soon-to-be ex-wife with her lawyer tomorrow. I'm guessing I'll just provide updates here. Second edit, to the individual on YouTube and in my private messages who asserted that I was cuckolded for over a year and that all my evidence would not be admissible in court, claiming to be a retired private investigator with 20 years experience. You can go away. I had a brief discussion on the matter with my lawyer earlier today, January 5th, 2021, and everything provided aside from the phone calls is valid. Find something more productive to do with your time than harassing me, friend. Update 1. Okay, since none of the other relationship forums are allowing me to post an update, and I can't create a new topic on Arshar's nuclear revenge, I'm putting the update here on my profile. There are two key events that happened over the course of the last 2 weeks that I want to highlight before the meeting with my soon-to-be ex-wife and her lawyer. The original post can be read here. Christmas Day was the first full day I spent in my new apartment. It's still a work in progress as I have more items I want to acquire, but overall, I've made it my home. Since I'm going to be here for at least 2 years, my boys and my eldest girlfriend came over and spent a good portion of the day with me. The girlfriend brought over homemade treats and also prepared a really excellent meal. I got to sit and talk with my sons in a way I hadn't done in a very long time, and it was pleasant. My big sister also came over with more goodies and spent time with us. It had been the first time she'd seen her nephews in nearly a year. Having all of them around me did me a lot of good. If I were by myself, I think I would have just drunk myself into a stupor. Everyone departed around 8 p.m., and I decided I wanted to go hang out with Joey and his wife, Claudia. I spent a couple of hours with them, had a few drinks, and then returned home. The next significant development occurred last week, December 29th, 2020. Around midday, I received a text from Nina asking if I was busy that night. I, of course, was not, so we agreed to meet up after I finished work. She arrived, and we went to dinner not far from my workplace. Here in New York City, we're doing indoor dining at 25% capacity thanks to the pandemic, but there's usually no difficulty getting seats because so many of us choose not to dine out as much these days. Regardless, after we were seated and ordered our food, Nina pretty much laid all her feelings bare. And honestly, I knew this was coming. She essentially confessed that she had liked me all the way back since we were teenagers, but never got the chance to tell me since Sue intervened and claimed me before she could. For context, I've known Nina longer than Sue, by 2 years. As I mentioned, she's been the fourth cornerstone of my social group, alongside Oz and Joey. We were the unconventional kids in high school, the raver types who didn't fit into all the cliques back then. Nina had a weight issue and was diabetic. She was a heavy-set goth girl who was incredibly cool, but no guy would ever give her a second glance. But we always had a special connection. These days, Nina is a personal trainer and yoga instructor. She was the plain duckling who blossomed into an incredibly beautiful swan, if I may say so. Long story short, we decided that upon the finalization of my divorce, we're going to start seeing each other. And yes, I slept with her that night. I took her back to my new place, and we had a wonderful time. Am I ashamed of sleeping with her? Absolutely not. Nina has been a better friend to me than Sue ever was. That's not to say Sue wasn't my best friend, but throughout the nearly quarter century I've known Nina, she's always supported me, even, as I learned that day, willingly stepping back from her own feelings to allow me to pursue and eventually start a life with Sue. That resonated with me on a level I didn't think it would. That kind of selflessness towards another person is the very definition of genuine affection. I know it sounds like I'm just trying to justify to myself that sleeping with her was the right decision. To me, it was, and I plan on exploring what's to come with Nina and I with total commitment. Okay, on to yesterday, the day I met my wife and her lawyer to discuss the divorce. It's now been 2 weeks since I completely detached from my soon-to-be ex-wife. This past Monday, I received a phone call from my lawyer that Sue's attorney had scheduled a meeting for us to discuss the terms of divorce on January 6, 2021, which was yesterday. I met with him Tuesday morning to discuss the terms I was seeking. In short, an uncontested divorce on the grounds of marital neglect from Sue. My terms are full division of assets, and I would sell my half of the house ownership to her. She can have it. We keep our respective vehicles. I keep my cabin in the Poconos, and under the pretext of marital neglect, she receives no spousal support from me. As for my 17-year-old son, he is free to choose who he wants to reside with following the divorce, which will most likely be me. So Wednesday arrived, and I showed up to my lawyer's office dressed in my best dark attire. My wife and her lawyer were there. She looked terrible, barely holding herself together. I maintained a stoic expression. I won't bore you with the legal jargon, but her lawyer presented an offer for terms of reconciliation. I rejected them almost as soon as she finished listing the details of the request. Like I said, I'll elaborate on the meeting details later. In short, we agreed to a legal separation leading to an uncontested divorce. The only modification is that I will pay her $653 a month in temporary spousal support to cover the cost of utilities until she is gainfully employed again. Yes, she was dismissed from her job for sleeping with POS. He was also fired. Up to a year after the finalization, I earn enough that it won't hurt me financially, even if she takes her time finding a new job, and she has enough in her savings to live off for quite some time. Once a full calendar year has passed after the finalization date of the divorce, she's on her own. A small price to pay for being rid of her unfaithful self. It'll take roughly 3 months for things to go through, so early April, if there are no complications, I'll be free of her. So after the meeting, my lawyer gave me some final words before telling me he'd be in touch to update me on the progress of the filing. Back out on the street, Sue pursued me and asked, "Can we talk?" I figured I'd grant her at least that. She held it together fairly well in the meeting, but outside, she let the tears flow, saying how sorry she was and how she never intended for things to go as far as they did. She says she never expected to fall in love with POS, but knew when she thought I was cheating how wrong it was to betray her own husband in such a way. She asked, "Could I ever find it in my heart to forgive you? And maybe in a few years, could we try to start over?" That she couldn't imagine what her life would be without me. I told her to start imagining it soon, because this would be the last time I ever spoke to or saw her. I told her that our 17-year-old son is almost an adult and old enough to make his own choices as to his own future. I said that I gave her half of my life and every ounce of love I had unconditionally, and she, in her own words, fell in love with another man. That there was absolutely no chance of me ever forgiving her. That all the love I had for her was slowly extinguished during all those months that she confided in and professed her love to POS, rather than coming to me and telling me she had any form of issue with how things were going with us. I told her I loved who she once was, but I despised who stood before me, and that if I never saw her again, it would be too soon. Here we were on the sidewalk in Midtown Manhattan, her creating a scene, crying her eyes out. A couple of people walked by and gave sideways glances, but at that point, I didn't care. I wasn't about to publicly humiliate her. I pretty much already socially and professionally destroyed her, but I needed to release this last bit of emotion I had for her. I finished by telling her I didn't regret the 23 years I spent being her husband. I regretted that in 23 years, she decided the easy way out was the better option, and And I have your insightful comments on Reddit to thank for this last one because it popped into my head just seconds before I said it. For 23 years, I thought she was mine, but it turned out it was just my turn. I put in my headphones, turned around, and walked away. Later that night, her father called me and apologized. He commended me for always being a good man to his daughter and told me that he had raised her better than what she did. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to miss the old man. My dad died years ago, so he's always been my surrogate father figure since, but I can't see myself maintaining a relationship with anyone on her side of the family. After that call, I went on Facebook and symbolically changed my relationship status to divorced. Yes, it's not final yet, but in my eyes, it's over and done. Like I said, when I make a post on Facebook, it's an event, so plenty of people started contacting me over Messenger asking questions, and I explained everything, that I filed for divorce with Sue earlier that day. Of course, Nina called me, surprised that I had acted so quickly. Obviously, I was already in the process when we spoke, but she had no way of knowing how far along it was. I asked her if she could come over, and of course, she arrived promptly. We were intimate again, but this time she stayed the night. We lay in my bed and talked into the early hours of the morning, and I haven't felt this level of relief and connection in a very long time. Nina understands me, and I can't get enough of being around her. Since the day she confided in me, she's all that's been on my mind. Yes, I know some people are going to say it's inappropriate to move on so fast, but as far as I'm concerned, my marriage ended the day POS allowed Sue to be intimate with him. So I'm about due. So yes, that's it. That's the conclusion. My divorce is in progress and I'm moving on to start a relationship with Nina. I know in a comment response to someone, I had said I'd probably never marry again, but that was before Nina revealed her feelings for me, and I can't deny that I feel the same. We're going to take it slowly, and we're not announcing anything until the divorce with Sue is legal and official. As for Sue, I couldn't care less what happens to her. She could move POS into our old home for all I care. I'll be receiving my money for the house over the course of 2021 in 4 quarterly installments. And aside from the $653 I pay out directly to her savings account monthly, I never have to see or speak to her again. To all of you who offered words of support, encouragement, and praise, I eternally thank you all. Update 2, my soon-to-be ex-wife of 23 years just tried to end her life last night. The struggles just keep coming. I've been pondering this for hours now, didn't know where to post this, so this forum seemed appropriate. So if you want some background, check my post history for the details. I'm not familiar with how linking to other forums works here, but my previous 2 entries were viewable in my profile. The quick version is this. I discovered my wife of 23 years, 45 female, was having an affair with a 27-year-old coworker. We have 2 sons, 22 and 17. I concocted a plan to completely disrupt her life, centered around deceiving her into thinking I was having an affair myself. I kept the deception going for over 4.5 months while compiling evidence of her infidelity, as well as securing divorce papers and planning my exit strategy, slowly moving my personal belongings from our home to a new apartment, getting a new phone and number, separating my half of our shared income into my joint account, etc. On December 16, 2020, I gathered every piece of proof of her affair I'd compiled, printed it all out from the start up to that week, filed it all into 14 binders, packed 11 into gift-wrapped boxes, and mailed them all out to the most important people in her life, as well as her HR department, with an estimated delivery between December 22nd and 24th. On Christmas Eve, while she slept, I took one of the remaining 3 binders and did the same. Only this one I taped the divorce notice to the inside of the cover and left it on my side of the bed, which, mind you, she'd had her lover in a number of times, along with my old phone and my lawyer's business card, and completely detached myself from her. Over the next 4 days, her life completely collapsed. Her family pretty much disowned her. Her friends, the ones who didn't know of the affair, ostracized her, and my own mother fiercely rebuked her, calling her the most scathing and vile things you could possibly imagine. She and her lover were also placed on administrative leave and eventually dismissed last week. We had our divorce hearing and settled on a legal separation leading to an uncontested divorce with a few provisions in place for transitional income since she's now unemployed. I'm to pay out the cost for the utilities, $653 a month, until either she finds gainful employment or up to 1 year after the date of the divorce's finalization, which is expected to be 3 months from now. She keeps the house, her car, and her half of the shared assets. I keep my half of the assets, my vehicles, car and motorcycle and boat, and my vacation property in Washibam, cabin in the Poconos. After the hearing, we had one final exchange where she tried to rationalize her infidelity and begged me to give her a second chance after the divorce is finalized. I, of course, said no, gave her some pointed words, and walked away from her forever. This brings us to last night. As only my closest friends, 2 sons, older sister, and mother have my new contact info, and I have completely blocked my soon-to-be ex-wife on all social media platforms. She has no means of reaching me since I left her Christmas Eve, but some of her mutual friends still do. Last night, I'm relaxing in my apartment, and I get a voice call notification on Messenger from one of said friends, one of the few who hadn't abandoned her following my revelation of her affair. She didn't waste any time when I answered and said she had gone to check on Sue, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and found her unconscious in the bedroom, foaming at the mouth, with 2 empty pill bottles next to her. She's in the ICU in critical but stable condition. The doctor said that she will likely recover. She's clearly not going to be well. After she pleaded and begged for me to come, her parents and 2 of her sisters were also there at the hospital. My guess is they were notified after the hospital attempted to notify me, but Sue would still have my old number as her emergency contact. I simply told her no, Sue's not my concern anymore, and she clearly decided she wanted to take the easy way out rather than deal with the shame and agony of the 23-year marriage she destroyed. I then told her friend that if her family were there, they could help her sort out the pieces, but as far as Sue and I are concerned, there is no Sue and I anymore. I then ended the call. I've had a few hours of sleep on it, and my sons called me this morning asking if I knew. I told them yes, but I also let both of them know that if they want to be there and supportive of their mother, I will not hold it against them or judge them for it. She is their mother after all, but I myself wash my hands of her and care little to nothing about what she does for or to herself anymore. They were both a little taken aback by this, but respected my stance. However, now that the news has broken about her attempt, many of those friends who dropped her are all starting to rally around her again and saying I need to be there for her, that even despite what she did to me, I need to support her in her time of need. I've also been informed that her affair partner tried to visit her this morning but wasn't allowed because he's not family. I'm getting pressured to go see her, but I feel nothing for this woman anymore. I haven't for a very long time. I became detached during the process of getting my retribution for her betrayal, and I stand by the fact that I don't care at all for what she's done. In fact, it makes me despise her even more. She's the one who was unfaithful. She's the one who thought a nearly year-long fling with a guy 5 years older than her oldest son was worth destroying 23 years. And now that she has to face the consequences of her choices, she chooses the most selfish way to deal with it. Even now, seeing as she's in all likelihood going to survive, she's cultivated immediate sympathy from everyone who took her to task. And I'm being made out to look like the bitter ex-husband, unwilling to sympathize for her by most of her family. Not her dad. He's reached out to me over the last few hours and said he respects my decision to stay away. It's like I never truly knew this woman. 23 years, and it comes to this. Yes, I know the way I ended things with her may have put her in a poor mental state, but now a whole new set of problems has emerged because either she had a complete mental breakdown and decided to harm herself, or she made an extremely risky and calculated move to regain favor from people who just weeks prior condemned her for betraying me. She cheated on me, and now she's the victim? Sorry if this comes off as a tirade, but I'm here trying to comprehend this. I want to be perfectly clear. I am not going to visit Sue. She forfeited her right to me caring about her well-being the day she allowed POS, my personal nickname for her lover, to be intimate with her. This might come off as heartless because despite the calm, collected way I've been throughout my whole ordeal, my feelings are still very much raw, but I don't care about this woman. I haven't for a very long time. I'm aware I'm going to be condemned by a number of people here. I don't much care. Think of me however you want. If you were in my position, you'd view her actions vastly differently. Some of you people are going to look up my post history and see the history of what I did to her, and you're going to draw the conclusion that her attempt was my fault, that me tormenting her for all those months, deceiving her into thinking I was cheating on her while she actively cheated on me, that destroying her socially and professionally as a result was a catalyst for her breakdown. Maybe it was. Maybe I am a cold sociopath. But as a certain fictional character famously said, you get what you deserve. I gave this woman half of my life and did absolutely everything to be the best possible husband she could ever have. By her own admission, I had no bearing on her decision to step outside of her marriage. She did it for herself. Her selfishness knows no bounds. And I am glad to be rid of her. Bang. If it makes me the bad guy because I will not go see her and never plan on interacting with her ever again, so be it. I hold true to my convictions. She made the choice to betray me. She made the choice to put her needs above the needs of our marriage. So now it's my turn to choose me over everything else. She can suffer in the deepest despair for all I care. Let everyone else help her fix her. My obligation to ever care about her well-being ended the day we signed the separation agreement. I just needed to express this. If you're going to cast judgment on me for feeling how I feel, save it. Like I said above, after 23 years and 2 children, I never really knew this woman after all. I have no sympathy for her, and I never will. Let her simply rot. Quick update. I've been informed by Sue's dad that she's been moved from the ICU to the mental health wing. Doctors are still monitoring her mental state. She's conscious and cognitive again, but obviously lethargic. Her father told me she asked if I came to see her, and he said no, and she became withdrawn. After he respectfully said any further news he'll share only if I inquire because he understands my emotional state. Also, I've scheduled counseling for my 17-year-old son. The first consultation is this coming Monday. Final update, 1 year after the revelations. If you're not familiar with my story, just take a look at my profile. It pretty much chronicles the devastating period my life became from the summer of 2019 into the early months of 2021. The short version is this. In 2019, I discovered my wife of 22 years was having an emotional and physical affair with a young man 5 years older than our oldest son. We have 2 sons, now 23 and 18 years of age. Upon the day of discovery, I set in motion a plan over the next several months that resulted in the professional and character downfall of my ex-wife. In hindsight, I'm not proud of what I did, but I did it nonetheless. And if given the chance to redo it, I would. It's all in my post history. December 24th was the 2-year anniversary of the night I served my ex and left her for good. A lot has happened since that day, and as I look back at where my life was then compared to where I am now, it amazes me that I'm still standing. A lesser man would have broken going through all I did, but several things pushed me to keep going. The first thing was my youngest son. I needed to be an example to him on how you stand up for yourself and not allow your partner to control you or dictate the narrative. At the time of the discovery, he himself was cheated on by his first girlfriend. So the idea of his own mother doing the same to me as his ex-girlfriend did to him really affected him deeply. The second thing was my now girlfriend, Nina. I've known her for 25 years. She's been in my life years before my ex, Sue, was. Over the course of all of this, I'd come to find out that Nina had been attracted to me since day one, when we were teens but never had the courage to confess. When Sue entered the picture, Nina stepped back and let me go, but she's always cared for me from afar ever since. Seeing me going through what I was going through, I guess she felt it was time to reveal her feelings. We've been together ever since. So what's happened since the last time I posted on Reddit some 9 months ago? Nothing. Life has gone on. Nina and I are now living together and in a civil union. All the benefits of marriage, but none of the complications. If it ever comes to the point where we decide to part ways, we walk away with everything we brought to the union. No lawyers, no messy paperwork. We simply dissolve the contract and go our separate ways. I highly doubt that day will come. Nina was also married years ago and has a now 6, going on 7 soon, daughter from it. We both agreed at the start we'd never marry again, which prompted us to look into the civil union route. My sons and her daughter are inseparable when they're together. My boys revealed to me they'd always wanted a little sister, and she's pretty much filling that role. Her and my 18-year-old son's relationship has blossomed into the classic big brother, little sister dynamic, which I couldn't be happier. There was a point in all of this where I feared my 18-year-old son would completely withdraw from ever being okay again, but thanks to therapy and lengthy discussions with each other, he's come around full circle. Still hesitant around girls his age, of course, but I'm not pressuring him. He'll get back out there when he's ready. My 23-year-old son and his fiancée are now husband and wife as of August of this year. The wedding was spectacular and mostly paid for by her parents. I wanted to contribute, but her father, who had become good friends with me, was well aware of the circumstances of my divorce and told me he and his wife would cover everything, despite me insisting on contributing something. And yes, Sue, my ex-wife, was in attendance. My 23-year-old son is on better terms with his mother than my 18-year-old, who hasn't talked to her since the whole ordeal started. Again, that's his choice, and I'm not going to force him to maintain a relationship or communication with her until he's ready. The seating arrangements were made so that we'd never lay eyes on each other, though I did get a glimpse of her, or rather, what's left of her. The woman I saw wasn't the one I married. She looked fragile and weak. The last time I was physically in a room with her, she was 155 pounds. She didn't look anything over 110 pounds, with dark circles under her eyes large enough to carry groceries. It was clear that the divorce took a heavy toll on her. In my heart, I wanted to feel pity, but I didn't. There was absolutely nothing there. Nina at one point grabbed my arm tightly and asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine and that today was about my son becoming a husband, nothing more. Following that, I received probably the best news I could get when we went to my 23-year-old son and his wife's place for Thanksgiving. She's a chef and thrives on big events. I'm going to be a grandfather. His wife was at the time 1.5 months pregnant. I had a congratulatory cigar with my son after dinner, and we talked at length about everything. First time we'd really sat down and had a genuine man-to-man conversation since it all started. He obviously confided in me that he was nervous about it all, and even mentioned that he wouldn't know what to do if what happened to me happened to him. I told him, "You can't force anyone to be loyal. You have no control over what's going on in their head or heart. You can only control yourself and how you handle it. It's how you handle it that defines you. Easy times bring happiness. Difficult times bring awareness." I don't think he's got anything to worry about. His wife adores him and has been steadfast with him through all of this. I cherish that girl for keeping my son focused and on track, like a good partner is supposed to do for their man. Gender reveal is next month, and I kind of hope it's a girl myself. On the home front, Nana and I are in the early process of discussing the possibility of me adopting her little girl and her taking my name. She has her father's last name, but he's been out of the picture since she was 1 and has made 0 attempts to make contact with anyone. Heavens, we don't even know if the man is still alive. He's definitely not in the U.S. anymore. Nina was born here but is of Albanian descent. Her ex was born in Albania and has dual citizenship. She thinks he's most likely back in Albania and will never see the man ever again. Nothing is definite, but Nina has made it clear she doesn't want her daughter carrying the man's name. And that's it. I've been living my life one day at a time, working diligently and spending time with the love of my life and her darling daughter. Life continues. So to all of you who read this, who are in despair, questioning if it ever ends and if you will ever heal from the betrayal, the answer is yes. But you have to commit yourself to not letting the darkness pull you in. It's easy to just accept your fate and let it consume you. You mean way more to far too many people to let that happen. The same way a cheater not only ruins their own life, but the lives of those around them, allowing yourself to be defeated does the same. Reach out to people who love and care for you. Disregard the feeling of shame about it. Walking the path of recovering from infidelity alone is a misguided endeavor. No good comes of it. Put your faith in those you know will support you. And regarding your unfaithful partner, maybe not go to the lengths I did, but expose the truth once you have it. Find proof, protect your heart and your assets, plan your exit strategy, and expose your partner for all to see. Never let them control the narrative. Never accept the manipulation. Never give in to the blame shifting. If your intuition is telling you something is wrong, follow that instinct and find out the truth. Never ignore the warning signs. When you're viewing things through an idealized lens, they're impossible to discern. And with that, I'm officially retiring this account. There's nothing more for me to say here. To the literal thousands of people who have imparted words of encouragement, praise, and insight to me over the last 2 years, I am forever grateful. To the hundreds of people who still insist that my entire ordeal is a fabricated story, if only it were, but the internet is a skeptical place. Believe whatever you want, but if you're investing that much energy into how something isn't real, maybe you need to get off the internet for a few months, spend some constructive time in reality, and deal with whatever it is in your lives that makes you so cynical. Thank you all. Thanks for reading. Kermit the Frog, signing off.